What happens usually is that many times building an internal in-group identity relies on building an external identity as a threat.
The first thing that you feel you're losing when you are a victim of divide and conquer is you're losing diversity, because we all have to think the same if we're in the same group. We're not allowed to think different thoughts too much, you know? We have to agree on the principles of this identity so we all can agree to it.
Realize that we are not thinking critically anymore if we align to a political party.
It's a tool that the divide and conquer agenda cannot live without. It's impossible to imagine successful divide and conquer without having in-group, out-group dynamics as part of the political dialogue, always going on.
A study that was conducted by the Federal Reserve, it was conducted in 2019, and they found out that nearly 40% of Americans would struggle to cover an unexpected expense of $400 in a given month.
For sure, as I've told you, because of the happening in Palestine for many decades, over time, slowly, I have made the decision that I don't identify myself as an Israeli anymore. It doesn't matter that I was born there, that I have an Israeli citizenship. Are you an Israeli? Oh, I don't like to be called Israeli because I don't support what the Israeli government is doing.
There is a way to portray a bad guy, like pretending to be a good guy, which is assuming that there is one more which is worse. Presenting canned concept, like easily to digest concept in the middle of a very simplified narrative.
If the father of the Constitution of America was complaining about the elites controlling the economy in his own day, already, the country wasn't even a few years old, it's already a problem with elites. It means the problem didn't show up. It means the country showed up into the hands of the elite.
Yeah, we can start.
The feeling is mutual.
Thank you. So today we are going to cover a talk which has three parts. The first one is going to be the divide and conquer strategy and polarization in our today's economies or democracies, Western democracies mainly. The second part is going to be political issues that corporations prevent politicians from addressing. Third part is going to be how corporations control the media and shape the political agenda, which is quite related to the second part. Who rules actually our democracies? If it is just the leader of the governments, that we usually think they are the one who rules the country, or a specific democracy, especially in the States or Europe. Or there is something else, there might be someone else in order to control.
Today is Wednesday, November 6th. You planning on voting today?
No.
Why?
I don't believe in voting. I don't really think our vote matters. I think it's the higher-ups at Wall Street that pick whatever is happening, period.
You think they're just not listening to the common people?
Yeah, absolutely.
And let me get started by mentioning a little bit of the context of historical background of this divide and conquer strategy, because what I think is that this divide and conquer strategy is something that we've been hearing or listening from many different points of view, but from my point of view, no one's there to try to explain it deeper and to link, to make the connection with our current societies. It's like, yeah, the divide and conquer strategy, but what is actually the divide and conquer strategy? So we have a different philosophers, economists, politicians that have addressed this concept, like Seneca in the Roman Empire, a philosopher. It said that it's all about fear and division to prevent the opposition from uniting. So it's all about preventing a common unite group of people using fear and division. This is quite important to divide them, and then a unite opposition will be softer. They wouldn't have such a strong. We also have, they don't unite. This is a quote from him. They don't unite in a common resistance. We also have Tacitus, another politician, historian, and senator in the Roman Empire. He said the same, preventing unified resistance. Moving forward, we have Karl Marx, the German philosopher in the 19th century. He talked about maintaining control over working class and division among workers based on ethnicity, nationality, and religion. He said also that fragmentation prevents proletarian from uniting in a common struggle against the capitalism. We have also a German sociologist and philosopher, which was Max Weber, and he also talked about political group and parties in order to prevent a unified opposition. This is all the same. This is the divide and conquer strategy. And moving forward to the nowadays concept, which is polarization. To understand it, polarization is the same as divide and conquer. Edward Klein, he wrote a book called Why We Are Polarized in 2020. And the main idea is that loyalty comes first, usually, and then reasoning. So our loyalty to our political blocs, to our political groups, is like a smoke screen in order to prevent us from reasoning. And then, and I'm going to jump this short of this, and then, for example, we have our, that we both admire, which is Noam Chomsky, and he said that the group are divided along racial, ideological, and economic lines to weaken collective action. And last one is Naomi Klein, and she wrote a book called The Shock Doctrine in 2007. And she basically said that superficial ideological battles are the perfect smokescreen to prevent people from seeing who really control the system. So this is the background of the divide and conquer and polarization. It's all about creating groups that fight each other. So how does the sense of belonging to a group shape our identity, provide security, and give meaning to our system, according to you?
One thing that comes to my mind as I think about this, because I understand that we're putting together this discussion to be able to share it with mostly the European culture. This is our hope. We hope that the Europeans will watch this video and follow our discussion to understand the situation happening in Europe. And even if we go back to the ancient times, when we see that this divide and conquer has been practiced for thousands of years, even we go back to the origin, to the roots of this. You mentioned Seneca. We are still in Europe. We are still in Europe, even with Seneca, because it's Greece, it's Mediterranean. It's still in Europe. But you know, this topic of divide and conquer has deeper roots. It goes back before there was Europe, before there was ancient Greek civilization. We still have an interesting example of divide and conquer, which I think is very important for the European to understand, even though it's not connected to Europe. And the reason is because here in Europe today, we understand the foundations of our civilization as being Judeo-Christian. The foundation of ancient and modern civilization is Judeo-Christian. If you go to the Bible, which is the source of the Judeo-Christian ethos, the civilization is described, its foundation is described in the Bible, you will find one of the most interesting examples of divide and conquer that we should talk about. It is the Tower of Babel. In the Bible, there is a story where God comes down to earth from the heavens. He comes down to earth and he sees the people are working on a very large project. And they are working together. And what are they building together? They're building a tower. And the tower is supposed to reach the heavens, as the Bible describes it. The goal of the project of all the people of the world, as it's described in the Bible, all the people of the world were building a project together, which is the Tower of Babel. And the goal was to reach the heavens. And according to the Bible, God came down and saw what they were doing and said, this is terrible. We have to stop these people, because if we don't stop them, nothing will stop them. They will continue to do everything they want. They will accomplish everything they want. We must stop them. And the tool that was used to stop them was divide and conquer. The same formula was used even before the foundations of the civilization of Europe. It came to us from the story of the Tower of Babel. God came down. How did he divide them? How did God divide and conquer the people? He attacked their language. That's why we say the Tower of Babel, according to the Bible, is where all the languages came from. And the reason why the language level was chosen as the level of the attack was because then they couldn't communicate with each other anymore. They needed to communicate with each other to build the Tower of Babel. If they couldn't coordinate their plans on such a high level that included everybody included in the discussion, and they spoke different languages that couldn't understand each other, that's the end of the project. That's the end of the Tower of Babel building. So as we go through these three chapters, we will see over and over again that some aspect of communication is always the tool being used to take the power away from the people and to make them, even if they speak to each other, not understand each other. And we will see this language as the weapon most used in the divide and conquer strategy.
So, but I'm wondering, I mean, you had explained it perfectly from the point of view of the one that perpetrates the strategy and who wants to control the people. But my wonder now is there might be something in we as citizens to make us participate in this division, even though it's artificial. We know that it's artificial, and it's being conducted by people that has many other interests different than the one that we might have as a society. But there might be something inside us as a human being in order to still keep participating in this strategy. And that was my question. So how does the feeling of belonging to a group produce something, shape our identity, provides us security, even meaning of our existence? So my question is, why people? I mean, they might not even know that this is a strategy, but for centuries we've been seeing that many societies in the world are divided, and we are divided because this is like the carrot thing. I mean, if we pursue the carrot, it's because we want to bite the carrot. So where is the carrot in being divided?
Yeah, the first thought that comes to mind is the promises and benefits of having an identity, not feeling lost and not feeling meaningless in the crowd. That the promises that are being given to us is that we can have our own identity. And this is worth fighting for. This has a value that encourages us to participate in the divide and conquer agenda. What's the result of it? Oh, you have your own identity. Don't you want to have your own identity?
Yeah, you maybe a collective identity.
Could be, yes, of course. Yeah.
But because what I see is that the collective identity is part of our individual identity, but it's an important part because we are social beings and we need to think that we belong to our community. So this collective identity that might be shaped by the division we are making is such an important such an important part of our own individual identity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I found also is that there are people, sociologists, psychologists, and so on, talking about the identity, as you said, and self-esteem, the emotional support, group offer network.
This is the carrot. This could be the carrot we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Like emotional network of emotional support, essentially in time of difficulties, security and protection, norm and structure. There are so many people, and they need a guideline, and they need someone to tell them how the things should be done in terms of norm and structure of behaviors, cooperation and collaboration, and even the sense of purpose of belonging in a group could provide a sense of direction and meaning in our life.
Yeah.
So it's not that, from my point of view, it's not that I'm saying that we shouldn't belong to any group. I mean, we are social beings.
The achievement of those who want to divide and conquer us, the achievement of conquering and dividing and conquering us, puts us, those who have been divided, those who have been conquered, it puts us in a situation where we are suddenly dealing with a lot of ignorance about the other identities to which we don't belong. It's one thing to say that the getting an identity has benefits. Yes, as you listed them right now. You went through a lot of good ideas that come with having an identity. But at the same time, you have a consequence of having an identity, which means you have a level of ignorance about the other identities that's increasing all the time, gradually increasing ignorance. The more you focus on supporting your identity, building up your identity, necessarily, whether you like it or not, whether you have this intention or not, you are going to be increasing your knowledge and abilities connected to your identity, while at the same time you're building your ignorance and losing your ability to interact with other identities who you don't study, who you don't spend time with and educate yourself about. So there is a kind of a opportunity for the people who engage in dividing us and conquering us to suddenly show up as those who want to help us.
Exactly.
To solve the problem they create by giving us identity.
Exactly.
And now you have other identities you don't know about. Well, you need us to help you connect these people together. We have to show you how to study the other identities.
Yeah.
You don't have time to do it yourself, but we have experts who can help you with this.
Yeah. And what happens usually is that many times the building an internal in-group identity relies on building an external identity as a threat. What I think is also that the feeling of the belonging to a group has a price. And usually this price is the thing that you give up by just trying to behave the way that the group expects you to behave. So my question is, to what degree do individuals sacrifice independent thinking and personal beliefs to align with the dominant ideology of the group?
I think we can summarize some of those aspects under the word diversity. I think that what happens when you engage in dividing a society in order to conquer them, by making the people attach themselves to certain identities. You've heard the phrase identity politics. By practicing this kind of political organization, political coordination of society that produces identity politics, as a result, you end up needing those who are engineering the divide and conquer. They need to include the topic of diversity, because that's the first thing you feel is you're losing it. You're losing diversity. People start to think the same because they belong to the same club or the same political party. And thinking outside the box becomes like a challenge. Oh, you're causing a problem now. You're thinking outside the box. So the first thing that you feel you're losing when you are a victim of divide and conquer is you're losing diversity, because we all have to think the same if we're in the same group. We're not allowed to think different thoughts too much, you know? We have to agree on the principles of this identity so we all can agree to it.
What I think is that, I mean, you are a child, you start growing, maybe because your family, your father, your mom, or whatever, or whoever it is, you start feeling like being left or right as they are, or maybe because your friend or your high school or whatever, and then you start absorbing all the narrative from one side or to another.
Yeah.
And once you have absorbed the main narratives that each side has, your way of thinking is going to be aligned to that narrative, probably forever. So you have to give up a lot of independent thinking all your life long, because you just once decided to join one side or to another. So from this point of view, it's quite difficult to get to know if you are actually giving up your critical thinking, because you are not aware. You think that you are thinking critically, but you are not. You are just absorbing, and you are just aligned with your common thread of information and narrative that is coming, because you are just consuming this kind of media. Maybe your best friend are these kind of people that they are also aligned to this narrative. And then you think that you are thinking critically, but maybe you are not, and you haven't done it all your life long. But there is sometimes it happens sometimes that there is something new coming up in a society that is difficult to place into one side or another, because it's such a breakthrough that is just coming out. Like, for example, artificial intelligence. Well, I'm going to give you another example, but let's start with artificial intelligence. So what about the artificial intelligence regulation? There's going to be parties saying it has to be done this way, and there's going to be parties saying it has to be done the other way. But in the meantime, no one knows how to think about it. But they will know it. They will know it in the future, as soon as the parties take a position.
Yeah.
So this lapse of time, this gap of time in which there is no a party who has taken a position, and you don't know what to think about, is the perfect time in order to think and to get to realize that you are not thinking critically, because you don't know what to think until they take position. And there was a time here, there was a debate here in Spain a couple of years ago, something like this, and it was about a child, like a teenager, that start feeling the other sex. Like if they are a boy, they start feeling like a girl, and vice versa. And for me and I started watching news. At that time, I still watch news, not now, but at that time I did it. And I was watching news and thinking, this is such a complex topic. I mean, there might be psychological factors. There might be even biological factors. There might be sociological factors for sure. It's not going to be the same here in Spain. We are very friendly with transgender policies and so on, that in a very, very conservative country. So psychological factor, biological factor, sociological factor, school, family, so many variables involved to know what the government should do with this teenager. Should the government allow this teenager to change sex or not? Should the teenager wait until he's or she they are 18? So that was the debate, and for me was, I don't know what to think. This is so complex for me, but I'm pretty sure that people are going to start thinking just the way their parties think. Because they are not critical enough to admit this is such a complex issue that it involves psychologists, biologists, sociologists, a lot of people, a lot of professionals, in order to address this topic, because it's a complex topic. So at that time, I realized that we are not thinking critically anymore if we align to a political party. So that was kind of my question, like, what are we giving up just because the sense of belonging? And it's a high price. We are giving up our critical thinking. Let's continue with a few more authors that have been talking about a quite interesting concept, which is the in-group, out-group. So we have Henry Tafel. He wrote a book in 1979, which is Social Identity Theory. And then he described that the individuals define their identity based on their membership, on how comparisons with out-groups reinforce the in-group cohesion. So, for example, left and right, they are the mainly groups, in-group, out-group, wherever you are placed. That is the core topic of our conversation. For example, immigration, national people coming from abroad. For example, Real Madrid versus Barcelona, football teams. For example, Brexit, national citizen versus Europe. And for example, the Western narratives, which are that we as Western people are better than China, Russia, Arabic countries, and so on. So there are many examples of in-group, out-group being used nowadays in order to reinforce the loyalty, the identity of the in-group, just by presenting their group as a threat, presenting their group as a downgrade way of organizing, or even as downgrade society, that would be supremacy from the in-group. And it's all about making this artificial division in order to build a stronger identity for the one that is presenting the others as a different threat or whatever. What are your thoughts about this?
It's a tool that the divide and conquer agenda cannot live without. It's impossible to imagine successful divide and conquer without having in-group, out-group dynamics as part of the political dialogue, always going on.
Exactly, the narrative. And I wanna ask you, I mean, we were talking about how the frame of the out-group is essential to build the identity of the in-group.
Framing, you mean how to describe them?
Yeah,
the way you describe the out-group.
Portrayed, exactly.
Portrayed, exactly.
Exactly. So my question is, there must be someone doing this, because I mean, it's a job that takes long to portray an identity of external people, external group, outgroup, as a threat, as something different, and so on. So my question is, what is the role that, from your point of view, does the media play in order to manufacture this outgroup as an enemy? I mean, in terms of the use of language. So, for example, when they say, when they call a migrant crisis or an invasion, because we could have said, for example, it's not a migrant crisis, they are coming for help. So this use of language is for sure, or for example, the only democracy in the Middle East, which we already know which one it is. So what are your thoughts about this use of language of the media portraying the outgroup?
When you mention the media, you introduce another aspect of the language being used to support the divide and conquer agenda, because the media plays the role of the authority, or the messenger of the authority, or the authority itself, or the messenger of the authority. It still points to the authority. And then we have a logical fallacy. In English, we call this logical fallacy appeal to authority.
Yeah, let's move on to the second part. Second part is political issues that corporation prevent politicians from addressing. A few topics. I mean, we are not naming all of them, but just the main one that are the one that we will say that ignites division. So, for example, identity and nationalism, as we've been talking. Nationalism is often used by elites to distract from economic inequalities and consolidate power. Social rights, as you were mentioning, diversity, abortion, LGBTQ plus, whatever, feminism, all these social rights, usually linked to the left narratives. We have, for example, immigration, for sure, quite related with national identity.
The only minority destroying America is the billionaires. Trans people are 1% of the population. Muslims are 1% of the population. Undocumented people are 1% of the population. We are focused on the wrong 1%. Trans people aren't taking away our health care. Muslims aren't defunding our schools. Immigrants aren't cutting taxes for themselves and their rich friends. It's the billionaires and their puppet politicians. The culture wars are a smokescreen. So many of the divisions in this state and in this country are manufactured by billionaires who want us fighting each other instead of fighting them. They want us looking left and right at our neighbors instead of looking up at them. The biggest divide in our politics is not left versus right, it's top versus bottom.
And we have religion, as we have said as well, as a topic that ignites division. And then we will have, on the other hand, we will have the issues that they rather keep quiet about. I mean, these would be the issues, and no matter the politician, no matter the political party that is running office, that is in the White House as a prime minister in every European country, they rather are going to be quiet about these issues. They are economic inequality and wealth redistribution. They are, for example, corporate regulation and antitrust laws. They are, for example, labor reform, minimum wage, for example. They are, for example, independent justice. They are, for example, political transparency and electoral reform, especially in the United States. For example, the housing bubble and the high financing of the economy. And we have a study that was conducted by the Federal Reserve. It was conducted in 2019, and they found out that nearly 40% of Americans would struggle to cover an unexpected expense of $400 in a given month, meaning that they need to rely on credit card, loans, and so on to cover their daily needs. I have never seen this on news. What about you?
It doesn't sell well, such information. They don't put it in media because it doesn't promote Coca-Cola or any other kind of advertising client that would want to make some money during that news episode.
We usually forget campaign promises easily. But once politicians take office, they don't make their promises.
They don't keep their promises.
Exactly. We usually forget them. So how can we hold our elected politicians accountable?
I think that one of the biggest challenges when it comes to accountability is the social distance between the one making the promise and the person expecting the promise to be fulfilled. The social distance between those two people.
Yeah, maybe the different qualification. Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the concept of hope, in particular, manufacturing hope.
Yeah.
Because we found out also an author, which is Cornel West, who wrote a book called Democracy Matters in 2004, talking about these promises frequently, that there are so many promises that frequently serve to maintain electoral engagement rather than to produce any substantive change, any structural change. And for example, like we've been told for many years about the healthcare reform or about the guns control. I'm talking about the states. or the student debt relief, like the student shouldn't pay so much in order to get a degree. But this, for example, just this one, not even talking about housing bubble and so on, but just this has been promises done for many, many years and never sold. So it's like this hope being manufactured all over the time, never being sold. And he said that hope can be revolutionary, but it often becomes a mechanism to diffuse the revolutionary potential of the masses. So my question is, like, are we aware of this bait and switch tactic every 4 years of constantly fostering hope when real structural changes never come? The bait tactic. Every 4 years, I'm going to be promising this, I'm going to be promising this. Structural changes, they're not coming anyway, anytime.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are we aware of this? Because I remember we were talking about this once, and you mentioned some opium concept, something like this. You remember?
Yeah, the word opium is a drug. It represents a drug that makes you forget your troubles.
With the age.
Yeah, and so because of the political climate in which we live today, another word was invented called hopium, which is like a drug that helps you forget the troubles and focus on hope as if it's a drug that lets you disconnect from your troubles. Just hope.
And also share the root of HOP with hope.
Yes, of course, hopium. Yes. And I think this introduces another topic that deserves more discussion, which is political memory. I think one of the reasons why hopium with an H is so popular and why it works so well in society, every 4 years you get to hope again that it's going to work this time. But the only reason that works is because of the amnesia that makes it work. If you don't at the same time cultivate systemic amnesia, you can't expect the hopium campaign in the next election cycle to work. So you have to attack it on both sides. Yeah. You don't only introduce the hopium, you have to introduce the amnesia as well.
What I think as well is that we are usually very, very kind and noble when it comes to ask for accountability for someone we are voting for. Yeah. So if we are voting, it's because we feel sympathize for these people. And
we've already taken the hopium pill before we go into the elections.
Exactly. So
we're already medicated.
So and not only because we sympathize with these people, but also because since we are living in this divide and conquer, we tend to think that they are preventing us from the fight to the others. So they are preventing us from the threat to the others. So our way of asking for accountability to these guys is going to be soft. It's going to be, okay, we are getting along quite well and no big deal between us. So my question at this point will be how it would be beneficial if we first, if we had to ask for accountability, and hopefully not for our politicians, but for the whole system. how would be beneficial to first disidentify with the group that we belong to in order to adopt a more neutral position and better observe the dynamics of the conflict between different collective identities. And I think that we were talking about this, and you sometimes mentioned an experience you have about being Jewish or not, disidentifying with being Jewish or not. And then you, from another perspective, let's say higher perspective, you could realize many, many other things that otherwise they were hiding for you. You remember?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. As I've told you, because of the happening in Palestine for many, many decades, over time, slowly, I have made the decision that I don't identify myself as an Israeli anymore. It doesn't matter that I was born there, that I have an Israeli citizenship. I still have to look in the mirror and I have to ask myself, are you Israeli? And because of the behavior of the country of Israel and the government of Israel, which claims to represent Israelis, they have forced me to come to the conclusion that I don't identify as an Israeli for that reason. And it has opened my mind. It has let me see things in a much broader perspective. Now, after a few years of doing this, 15, 20 years of doing this, I've come to yet another conclusion, that I don't need to de-identify, I don't need to stop identifying as an Israeli if I care about the relationship between Israelis and non-Israelis. Now, if I want to become proactive, then it's no longer serving my interest to disconnect from the identity. If I don't want to be connected to the problem that is coming from the identity, I can just disconnect, of course. But if I want to solve the problem, I'm not sure if disconnecting is the best approach.
Yes.
If I want to be an activist, if I want to engage in the problem of the Israelis, then I should maybe take advantage of the fact that I am Israeli and again identify as an Israeli and say, but now I want to do it for another reason. Not because I'm right, not because I belong to the home team, not because my side is the winner. No, because I want to discuss with the other. I want to discuss with the outgroup. I want to engage in dialogue. And so now I will think maybe it doesn't benefit me to disassociate with the group that I don't agree with and I'm part of them. Maybe I'm more powerful as an actor who does identify. I'll give you an example. I was in Poland 15, 16 years ago, and many Polish people who support Palestine found me. And when they found me, they said, are you an Israeli? Oh, I don't like to be called Israeli because I don't support what the Israeli government is doing. Yeah, but we need you to be Israeli. Why? Because we have a big microphone for you. We have a television camera. We want to put you in the social media. We want to put you on the news. And if you were Israeli, then being against Israel would make more media attention for us.
Were they Jewish?
Could you be more Israeli, please? And I said, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. I can't argue with this logic. It makes sense that I show up in front of the camera and say, I am Israeli, and I do disagree with Israel.
Were they Jewish as well?
No, they were not Jewish. No. But they knew that if I said I'm Jewish, if I said I'm Israeli, and I disagreed, there's more media attention. And they were right. So in this case, and only because I choose to be activist, not because I choose to be right or wrong, I don't want to be wrong, so I disconnect from Israel. No, that's not my motivation. My motivation now is a different level of action. I want to engage to make peace between Israelis and the people that Israel calls their enemy. Now suddenly it becomes more useful to me to jump back into the identity again. because as an actor who plays the role of the identity, I might have a bigger microphone. I might have a bigger audience. So I learned a few things.
We are finishing, we are wrapping up, and we are moving to the third part, which is how corporations control the media and shape the political agenda. And yeah, I'm just going to mention two important historical contexts. That was in 1787. It was James Madison. He was actually the fourth president of the United States. Yeah. And he said, it was considered to be the father of the Constitution, by the way. And he said, at that time, when the Constitution was being written, that Madison believed that the most significant political danger was a majority faction seeking to redistribute wealth or weakening, by doing so, the power of the elite. So at that time, it was so clear that the population shouldn't have the power to weaken the power of the elite in terms of wealth redistribution. And that was actually written down in the Federalist paper, 1787, and it was the document that was written before the Constitution. That was the seat of the country. And then
Trilateral Commission, yeah.
Trilateral Commission, 1970. They expressed their concern about, well, the Trilateral Commission is a political and business elite, and they expressed their concern about the increasing of political activism and civic engagement in Western society. They expressed it, they wrote it down, and then what happened in the coming years, like in the 70s, 80s, is that a lot of civil rights, labor activism, student protest, anti-war demonstration, and so on, became lower and lower and lower over the time.
Yeah.
Since they increased the surveillance and policies in order to reduce the union between these faction of the society. We are talking about how corporations control the media. We now know that the corporation, from the very beginning, were trying to control laws. Now media, we had, for example, a data which is quite surprising. It was in 1983, 50 companies, 50 control 90% of the US media. Today, they are just 5. So
with no zero.
So there is this concentration of power. And these 5 companies, they are having a share, they are invested by the biggest asset manager. So it's like we have 5 companies controlling the media and 5 asset manager controlling these 5 companies. Quite easy to govern. So my question is, we are going to 3 questions that are very, very interesting, and they are related to this political structure that corporations have to control the media, the narrative, and so on, and in doing so, and therefore, the political agenda. So my question is, why, if government have large teams of sociologists, economics, marketing, and communication specialists who can create private strategic before and to lead public debate in line to their interests, the interest of the government, why do they still need the presence of think tanks?
mentioned that, to create the appearance that the government is trusting others, experts, neutral, etc. There's many different ways to explain why the think tank is necessary, but two examples: neutrality and expertise. There's others. We can talk about other examples as well, but those are the two big ones: neutrality and expertise. And
And
I think
objectivity, because
neutrality, objectivity, neutrality are the same, basically. Yeah,
like the ideas, the narrative is being presented by another team, another part. This is not part of the government. Then it has to have this air of objectivity. It's like, this is not our ideas. It's coming from another part of the society.
Right.
But they are actually sleeping together, right?
Of course. And then that's why we have this phrase independent media.
Yeah. Which is,
you cannot have just BBC and CNN. You have to have also independent media, because it's no longer possible to imagine that BBC and CNN are independent. So now we have to start introducing, but we also have independent media as well. We're confessing that we lost independence in the media. So we have to introduce independent media as well,
Yeah. So, there is a way to portray a bad guy, like pretending to be good guy, which is assuming that there is one more which is worse.
Exactly.
And then there is this think tank framing thing, and then what they are usually doing with this framing concept is to simplifying narratives.
Yeah.
And, for example, presenting canned concept, like easily to digest concept, in the middle of a very simplified narrative. So, for example, we had this expression of a self-made man, for example, very used in the United States. That this narrative, for example, what is actually doing is shifting the attention away from, the systematic inequalities that they are responsible for sure, and blaming individual behaviors, like, oh no, you are a lazy guy and you deserve this. You are not a self-made man. You didn't work hard, so you deserve this. They are not only using the divide and conquer strategy, like the lazy with the hard workers, but also framing this in this kind of concept of you got what you deserve, but they don't even dare to talk about the systematic inequality.
Or let's say, for example, they accuse you of not being the hard-working, self-made man, and you're lazy.
Let's wrap it up with a final question, which is, what is that comes to your mind first when it comes to lobbying and revolving door policy? Because I can give you some data like 11,500 lobbyists are registered in Washington right now. 11,000. There was more than 1,500 former government officials moving from official position to private sector annually. And yes, 70% of the secretaries of defense since 1990 had tied with defense contractors. So it's obviously that they are sleeping together.
Yeah.
Corporates, high top representative and official in the government and politician. So where are your thoughts about this?
I think if you go back to what you said earlier about Madison, who was complaining about the elites even in the 1780s. So we are talking about 250 years ago. Come on. If the father of the Constitution of America was complaining about the elites controlling the economy in his own day, already, the country wasn't even a few years old, it's already a problem with elites. It means the problem didn't show up. It means the country showed up into the hands of the elite. It wasn't the elites that came to the country. No, it was the country who came to the elites. We have to think about it this. Our work together discussing these topics should be to wake up the society to understand we are the ones who are trying to challenge the elites by creating a country. This is the beginning of America. What was the America Project? It was to break away from the British elites.
Exactly, and that's the point. It was
the country who came into the elite problem. Exactly. It wasn't the problem the elites came to the country.
Exactly. It was actually the elites writing the Constitution.
Yes, and they were saying, can you imagine a people organizing themselves finally to challenge the elites? I mean, it wasn't the country and then the elites came like a parasite to invade the country. No, the elites were controlling everything across the Atlantic, from England to expanding and new colonies everywhere. The elites were the business of the day. It was the country who showed up and said, hey, can we be a people of our own? Can we challenge the elites? And Madison was saying it in his day. Exactly. The Constitution should be created in such a way to stop the elites.
Exactly. So yeah, let's finish here, bro. I'm very grateful for having this conversation with you.
Me too, of course, Victor. I'm always grateful to have this discussion with you as usual.
We're gonna log the script and put it on the comment, just if someone wants to take a look. And we are actually very, very grateful if someone wants to make some comment. We will be grateful of answering and see people responsive and feedback. So such a nice moment to share with you, and we will keep talking about our endless conversation.
Looking forward to the next episode, of course.
It's a war that should have never happened. It's a war that Russians tried repeatedly to settle on terms that were very, very beneficial to Ukraine and us. The major thing they wanted was for us to keep NATO out of the Ukraine. The big military contractors want to add new countries to NATO all the time. Why? Because then that country has to conform its military purchases to NATO weapon specifications, which means certain companies, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, General Dynamics, Boeing, and Lockheed, get a trapped market. In March of 2022, we committed $113 billion. Just to give you an example, we could have built a home for almost every homeless person in this country. We then committed another $24 billion since then, 2 months ago, and now President Biden's asking for another $60 billion. But the big, big expenses are going to come after the war, when we have to rebuild all the things that we destroyed. Mitch McConnell was asked, can we really afford to spend $113 billion to Ukraine? He said, don't worry. It's not really going to Ukraine.
It's going to American defense manufacturers.
So he just admitted it's a money laundering scheme. And who do you think owns every one of those companies? BlackRock. So Tim Scott, during the Republican debate, said, don't worry, it's not a gift to Ukraine, it's a loan. So raise your hand if you think that loan's ever getting paid back. Yeah, of course it's not. So why do they call it a loan? Because if they call it a loan, they can impose loan conditions. And what are the loan conditions that we impose on? Number one, an extreme austerity program, so that if you're poor in Ukraine, you're going to be poor forever. Number two, most important, Ukraine has to put all of its government-owned assets up for sale to multinational corporations, including all of its agricultural land, the biggest single asset in Europe. in Ukraine. There's been 1,000 years of war fought over that land. It's the richest farmland in the world. It's the breadbasket of Europe. 500,000 kids almost, Ukrainian kids, have died to keep that land as part of Ukraine. They almost certainly didn't know about the slum condition. They've already sold 30% of it. The buyers were DuPont, Cargill, and Monsanto. Who do you think owns all of those companies? Yeah, BlackRock. And then in December, President Biden gave out the contract to rebuild Ukraine. And who do you think got that contract? BlackRock. So they're doing this right in front of us. They don't even care that we know anymore, because they know that they can get away with it. And how do they know that? Because they have a strategy. And that strategy is an old strategy, which is they keep us at war with each other. They keep us hating on each other. They keep the Republicans and Democrats fighting each other, and black against white, and all these divisions that they sow.